Qatar at the Coca-Cola company. I've been working with Coke now for
Test, test. 1, 2, 3. Test. Test. 1, 2, 3. Test.
Organizes it every time we come in and out, but not here today. But and it was interesting arriving yesterday and pretty safe. Max Verstappen, some of the number of the Formula One teams were arriving. So Ferrari was crossing paths with us and Alpine and everything. So they just got off the holiday. From Brazil, super.
Yes, I checked the mic. Is that okay for sound?
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We are about to start the GWC Forum 2021.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers, and guests that are joining us live here in person and virtually from all around the world. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this first industry event, GWC Forum 2021, titled Getting You in the Game. Prior to hosting the greatest sporting event in the world, FIFA World Cup, here in Qatar. At the center of each sporting event, and to ensure a smooth and efficient delivery of complex, large-scale events, logistics offer a spectrum of integral services in the lead, during, and after the final whistle. As a regional supporter and the official logistics provider for FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022, GWC will provide FIFA and the commercial affiliates with critical expertise in logistics and supply chain solution, ensuring every aspect of the competition is delivered smoothly, efficiently, and most importantly, on time. To achieve the national mandate, we have honed every touch point of our services and infrastructures to ensure we deliver a truly memorable and successful event. In the year to come, we will continue in our endeavor to improve and further to leave no stone unturned to ensure a successful realization of another milestone on Qatar national vision. In today's forum, our distinguished panel of speakers will share insights of scale logistics, what takes place behind the scenes during mega sporting events, and more importantly, shed the light in the preparation for the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022, which will create a benchmark not only for Qatar, but globally, for the world. Starting the proceedings today, please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Mr. Jose Duma, Head of Event Logistics, FIFA.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak here and to be amongst my friends and colleagues within logistics. Logistics is everywhere. As you can see, operational logistics in front of us here. Thank you very much, gentlemen. There's probably never been a more apt time to talk about logistics. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, there's never been a more apt time to talk about logistics. For 25 years, I've been in logistics, and nobody really knew what we'd done. I don't know about you guys, but we're always in the background. But this year's been different. This year, we've had the Ever Given stuck in the Suez Canal. We've had container shortages. We've had blockages in the ports. So everybody's talking about logistics now. Logistics is in the forefront. It's in the media. It's everywhere. Throughout Europe, we've had a shortage of truck drivers. And then supply chain constraints now hitting us with not enough raw materials to be converted into products. And then lastly, to end on a high note, the role that logistics has played in the distribution of COVID vaccines. But where will we be in 1 year's time from now? Where would the eyes of the world be looking? Next slide, please. Qatar, the FIFA Football World Cup Qatar 2022. The eyes of the world will be here watching us. Biggest sporting event in the world, biggest single sporting event with 3.6 billion people watching us. That's people watching on TV, but even more will be watching with handheld terminals and devices. Visitors to Qatar will actually come here. 1.2 million spectators will be in Qatar. And history will be made. The first time in the Muslim Arabic world. The Football World Cup has been going since 1930. First one in Uruguay in 1930. Now, almost 100 years later, the Football World Cup comes to an Arabic nation and a Muslim country. History will be made in 2022, right here. But let's have a sneak preview. Let's have a look at that history, and let's have a quick video that shows what 2022 will look like. Okay, football's all about the goals. We would have seen the goal. But what we might not have seen is the cameras around the goal line. Around the goal line are 7 cameras, and they tell the referee if a goal has been scored. Sometimes you might see when a goal is scored, the referee looking at his watch. He's not looking at his watch to see what time the last bus is home, because there won't be extra time. He's checking to see if a goal's been scored, if the ball has crossed the goal line. Logistics move that technology in. At the other end of the pitch, there's another 7 cameras. And if I add them all up, all the way around the football pitch, there's about 50 cameras that go to the VAR room. Logistics move all that in, but that's unseen. Nobody sees what we do there. Then we have the players in the teams. For a Football World Cup, about 1,300 players and team officials move with the team. And our job as logistics is to move their bags and equipment for them. But that's relatively easy. If I say for an Olympics, 18,500 athletes and delegates take part in an Olympics. Now we start to see the scale of these mega events. For us at logistics, we move the bags for them. Each athlete brings about 2.5, 2.8 bags. So we move about 100,000 bag movements into and outside of the village. And then we have the trophy itself. You would have seen the trophy. I can't tell you how we move the Football World Cup trophy, because that's surrounded in secrecy. We keep it very, very secret. But I can say how we move the medals, for instance, in London 2012 for the Olympics in comparison to the Rio de Janeiro Olympics. In London 2012, we moved the medals with no secrecy at all. We told everybody where the medals were being stored. They were being stored in the Tower of London, 1,000-year-old building. Very beautiful, very picturesque. We invited the press. We took photos. They were stored 10 metres below ground, not great for logistics, but great for photo opportunities. As the medals were being moved, we took more photos of the collection of the medals from the Tower of London. In Rio de Janeiro, maximum secrecy. We didn't tell anybody where the medals were stored. They were stored in cupboards in our offices, but we didn't tell anybody. So now we get to see the country differences. What works for one country might not work for another. Football World Cup, the last Football World Cup, was held in Russia, biggest country in the world. We had 11 host cities. Doha, Qatar, 1 host city. So now we start to look at geography and how geography plays a part in these major events. Rio de Janeiro, so let's do Doha. Doha, the distance from our main distribution centre to the stadium, probably 1.5 to 2 hours, the furthest away stadium. Rio de Janeiro, for the Olympics, the distance from the main distribution centre to the furthest away location, which was our Manaus warehouse, Manaus stadium, 12 days. 12 days there, 12 days back. We lose the truck for 24 days. So we see the scale of countries and the geography. What works in one country might not work for another. So we have that as a layer of complexity. And then the football. We saw the football. Normally we play football with just one ball at a time on the pitch. So how many balls do you think Adidas move for us in a year as FIFA? 500,000 plus. So more than 500,000 balls move around the world, in many different countries. Those go to scores, they go to football tournament. So now we get the complexity and the scale, the geography, everything mixed in. It's a huge operation. One way of thinking, what do we do? What do we do in the stadium? What do we do as logistics? Well, if you turn a stadium upside down and shake it, all the stuff that drops out are items, except the people, are items that logistics has put there for the tournament. Next slide, please. Can I have it there? Okay, so we looked at the stadium, turn it upside down, all the bits that drop out, logistics has put there. But what about the other things that logistics do? It's more than a stadium. How many other sites do logistics have to service? We talked about the referee checking his watch. The referee needs somewhere to stay. The referees need somewhere to stay. They stay in a hotel. They need somewhere to train. We see the footballers train. Kind of don't you think it's right that the referees train as well? They need to keep their fitness levels up. The referee may be from one country, the linesman from another country. They have to know how they interact together. So they have their own training sites. If we add up all the sites that we have in Doha for the Football World Cup here, it's more than 700 sites that logistics has to service. For the Olympics, we have the added complication of a village. Remember I said about the 18,500 athletes? They need somewhere to stay as well, so they stay in a village. We as logistics have to fill the village with the furniture for the athletes. But the village has a number of phases in its build. First of all, the village is built, then a team come in called overlay, and they fit out the village for the teams, the spaces to fit the team sizes. Then we as logistics come in and we provide the furniture. Then after that, there's a deep clean. Cleaning come in and they clean the whole village. And then after that, housekeeping come in, and housekeeping make the beds, put the soap in the soap dispensers and so on. So we as logistics only have a very slim, narrow amount of time to complete our work within that village. And our work is huge. We move in just under 1 million items in that small slither of time. Those items can be very big. They can be beds, nightstands, wardrobes, and those items come from all over the world, from international supply chains, and we have to bring them in and place them in that village in that small slither of time so the village can be opened in time. Then we have road events. We talked about the stadium, but what happens if there is no stadium? In road events, the road is the field of play. You play on the road. That's very difficult for us in logistics because it means we have to work with the police, we have to work with local authorities for shutting down roads. We have to change bus routes, so quite often we work at night. So now we're starting to see complexity, scale, geography, and the range of items we have to handle. Horses. Moving in horses. For an Olympics, we're moving about 300 horses. We use freighters. Each freighter, we have about 40 horses on a freighter, an aircraft. We move them into the country. We have to pass through customs. We have to pass the horses through customs, their food and their medicines. Quite often the medicines can be restricted or prohibited items. So now we have all the different stakeholders we have to work with as well. And then the ceremonies. I remember in London 2012, we had the stage within the Olympic Stadium, one of the biggest stages in the world, with many set changes. And we had to change that from a stage, from an opening ceremony, into an athletics track. We had 72 hours to do that, and had to put out 170 trucks and put in about 70 trucks of athletic equipment. So looking at that, there's a whole range of items that we have to do, a whole lot of different skills we have to know. And lastly, the anti-doping sample. So the medals, we spoke about the medals. They are replacement medals. If I lose a medal in my operation, I have a spare. I can get another medal. But the anti-doping sample is unique. It's unique to that athlete, to that time, to that place. And we can't afford to lose them. So now we start to see, I don't think there's any other logistics type operation that has that breadth and that range of activities within it. And lastly, the next slide, please. And lastly, the regional transformation. So I grew up not very far from the London 2012 Olympics, Stratford, and I could see the difference in the area from what was a very run-down, polluted area with derelict buildings into an area that was rejuvenated because of the Olympics. Now, Stratford is a desirable place to live, to work, to play. A big mega event also has an impact on the country. When a country delivers a big mega event, it demonstrates to the world that the people there had the skills, the ability to deliver at a very high level. It also shows the infrastructure is in place, and it gives foreign investors the confidence to invest in that country. And lastly, the people. I myself was part of the team for London 2012, and I learned from 2012. I managed to upskill myself. And that's really what we're here for today, really. We have a fantastic panel. We have very, very knowledgeable experts in their field. And from them, hopefully, we'll all learn, and we'll learn and improve our skills and knowledge within logistics. So thank you for listening to me. I'd like to introduce now back to Emily. And it's been a pleasure giving the keynote speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jose. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Angwin. I'm a senior presenter at Al Jazeera, and I am today's host and moderator. We'll just make sure that the precious cargo gets removed from the stage. It's such an honour to have that trophy here with us today. In the meantime, I'm about to invite our panellists up for our first panel discussion, but in the meantime, we'd like to play a video from Christopher Nelson, who's the operations manager for Coca-Cola in the Middle East, who couldn't be here today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Nelson. I'm the franchise manager for UAE, Oman, and Qatar at the Coca-Cola Company. I've been working with Coke now for about 11 years in different fields, ranging from public affairs to project management, and most recently in franchise operations for the Middle East region. Now, before I get started, I would first like to apologize for not being able to be there in person today. I would also like to thank GWC for still accommodating me and allowing me the honor to speak at such a great event, even from 300 kilometers away. Sports and entertainment sponsorships are part of our DNA at the Coca-Cola Company. You know, whether it's our status as the longest standing partner of the Olympic Games, our promotion of inclusivity and diversity as a founding member of the Special Olympics, or as an official sponsor of the upcoming 2022 FIFA World Cup Games here in Qatar next year. We ultimately aim to connect with consumer passions in these events in an effort to create real magic. My experiences with Coca-Cola and mega sporting events such as the World Cup really started in the areas of hospitality back in 2014. Now, I know it sounds cliche, but when it comes to any kind of avenue of event management, you always have to hope for the best but plan for the worst. I could go and, I could sit here and go through the big watch outs or the red flags that I've experienced over the years, but I think event management can be described in a much more simpler way. You know, every event will ultimately deviate from your original plan. Even if minuscule, there will be deviations. Stay on task, keep a cool head, and you will find solutions. At Coca-Cola, our biggest asset is our people and, of course, our partnerships. With every large-scale event such as the World Cup, you're presented with new challenges, whether it be the importation of portfolio choices, the importation of cold drink equipment, or probably most importantly, the importation of people to ensure you have the right number of feet on the street to execute such a large-scale event. With Qatar as the host of the World Cup and in our region for the first time, our team has already created a new organization to manage the different pillars of the upcoming games. You know, whether it's our local hospitality program or our venue operations at the stadiums or at the hotels hosting the staffs and the players and the teams, or whether it's the FIFA World Cup Trophy Tour that will be kicking off at the beginning of next year. You know, we have teams in place that are already building the plans to execute a seamless event. That said, our efforts are only multiplied given partnerships with local logistics solutions experts such as GWC. Now, we all live in a completely different world than I think we could have imagined 2 years ago. We are seeing supply chain disruptions across all industries. And I think it's events like today that advocate for like-minded individuals to come together and openly discuss these challenges and problems. You know, the insights we gain from each other only create more opportunities for each other. And with that in mind, I would really want to thank GWC and everyone else that was involved in the organization of today's event. Now, while I'm not there in person, I really look forward to hearing the discussions throughout the day. And again, I just want to say thank you and look forward to seeing all of you next time I'm in Qatar. Thank you.
Okay, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome our panellists up for our first discussion, which is logistics behind mega sporting events. So I'll bring Jose Duma back onto the stage, please, the head of Events Logistics FIFA, Mark Novak, who is Event Logistics Assistant Director at the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. Also, Kirsten De Bruin, Senior Vice President of Cargo Sales and Network Planning, Qatar Airways. And Matthew Phelps, the General Manager of GWC. Big round of applause, please, for our panellists today. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's lovely to have you all here. I'm going to start with you, Jose. Let's talk about some of the challenges you face and your organisation faces when organising such a large-scale event. You mentioned some of them briefly in your introduction, but given that there are millions and millions of people attending and also 3 billion spectators, what are some of the challenges that you face?
So I think when I talked about kind of the different layers this way. If I kind of imagine it, all the different stuff that we have to understand and learn, because we have so many different types of things that we're doing, from moving people's bags and so on. What I didn't really speak about is a supply chain going that way, this way. So quite often in logistics, we have to start from, within events, we have to start from the product design all the way to where that product's life ends. And I think that's really unusual in logistics, because normally logistics, you just do freight movements or you just do warehousing or distribution. With these mega events, you have to understand the whole cycle of a product, from the design to really the end of use of that product. It's a whole product life cycle. I think for logistics, that's quite unusual. Because of that, I think it's unusual to get the right skills, either in a company or within people, that can understand that whole life cycle of items.
Kirsten, I want to touch base with you in relation to the aviation industry. And can you give us an insight into what impact mega events like the Qatar World Cup and just recently Expo 2020 have on the aviation industry?
Yes, absolutely. I think, well, first of all, the pandemic already showed how flexible and agile we can be, working with the various partners on the ground. It's not only our aircrafts that need to fly the cargo from A to B, but all the partners on the ground and the innovative processes that we were able to get resolved and set up in such a short period of time during the pandemic. Now, specifically with mega events, we talk to partners to get quick clearance depending on the commodity. I mean, imagine that 1.5, where I just heard 1.2 a million people extra will come here, so we need to supply them obviously with food, the hotels, F&B, and not only just the content of a stadium, for example. So I think we have shown, and not to be called what was already mentioned before, the vaccine, and how we, set up in such a short time specific logistics to make sure that there were no mishaps in the whole process. So we've learned a lot in the last let's say 2 years, and we're still learning. But together with all of our partners, from customs to all the infrastructure we need, we already started thinking about how we re-engineer our processes to make sure we can actually supply the country with a large volume of supplies that, based on the relatively smaller country we are, and only basically one port of entry in addition to that, will make it quite a challenge, but we're convinced that we can make it work.
That's good to hear.
Thanks.
Sticking with the theme of challenges, Mark, over to you. What are some of the challenges that the Supreme Committee faces? I understand that the organisation has legislation that needs to be adapted to fit the current circumstances. Can you explain a little bit about that and some of the challenges that will arise over the next 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just a simple logistics person, but recently passed earlier this year was Law Number 10, which governed what we call the enabling legislation for the tournament and events beyond that. We know that FIFA has a very specific clientele and client group. Those constituent groups have very specific needs when it comes to the importation of goods or visas and things of that nature. So focusing on what we do specifically for, from a logistics perspective, is that we spent more than 2 years working with the Customs Authority on how we can simplify customs procedures for these constituent groups. We've been partnering closely with FIFA and a number of other stakeholders throughout the country to, one, identify what they need, two, identify what the current law allows us to do, and where those gaps are. And we've been working, I said, more than 2 years now, and I'm happy to report that the sports event management system is a bespoke system that's been created by the Customs Authority here in Qatar. It's a legacy system that will be able to be used not only for the 2022 FIFA World Cup, but for events in the country beyond that. So it's a fairly flexible and agile system, and what it allows us to do is give specific access to the relevant constituent groups that's governed by FIFA, and it can allow not only for a simplified customs declaration, but also certain fees or other exemptions that may apply to those client groups. And I think it's just a really big milestone and accomplishment for us as an organizing committee and as an integrated team, but also for the state of Qatar as a legacy piece. Because, like I said, the way it's structured, it's on the back end of the Al Nadib system, which is the current single window customs clearance system. So it pulls from a lot of those same efficiencies, and I think it's a really great thing, not only again for the event, but for the country.
I'm not necessarily across how customs works and the intricacies of it. Can you give us a practical example of what you're talking about and how those changes have helped?
Yeah, I'll use the example that we've discussed a couple times already today, is that the trophy, for example. Jose talked about restrictions and prohibitions, maybe for precious goods or precious metals, or jewels or things of that nature. We also talked about medicines that need to be imported. All of those things require, they fall under the restrictions and prohibitions section of customs, and they require a certain amount of approvals or clearances from various government agencies, whether it's Ministry of Public Health or MOI or anybody in between. And what we're doing right now with the system is to streamline that process, not only for the users to gain those approvals, but also to work with their customs clearing agents to make sure they have the seamless and smoothest user experience as we can. So what would have taken days or even weeks, sometimes months, to issue formal letters, get a response from the ministry, actually this documentation was out of order, change this word to that word, change that number to this number. Now we can do in a matter of days, maybe even hours. And one of the examples practically for the Arab Cup this year, just over the weekend, we were tracking a vessel. Jose talked about the full supply chain. We had to track our vessel from China. We knew that 3 containers were very important with some equipment that we needed for the stadiums, and we tracked that vessel all the way from China through the UAE to here. We knew exactly when it was coming, and we were able to get 3 containers off to our warehouse, cross-docked, and out to the stadiums in less than 24 hours. And that was with the partnership that we have with the Customs Authority and the Port Authority at the seaport. So these are kinds of the things that we're seeing where I think the people in the room can attest to that sometimes that could take days. And we were able to get those 3 containers identified, not quarantined out, but segregated out and fast-tracked through and expedited. And this is the benefit that we have that we can provide to FIFA's clients.
I notice Jose is nodding. He's obviously very happy to hear about that.
Yes, yeah. Just to add to Mark's comments, it's about finding the right partners, really, to make it all work as a supply chain. Mark mentioned the importance of it as a whole supply chain, and it's only as strong as the weakest link. So yeah, you do need the right partners in there. We're fortunate we're partnering with GWC. We can choose who our partners are in some cases, but with customs, it's a monopoly. You can't. Unfortunately, the customs here is very good. They've understood our requirements and translated that into these systems that Mark has talked about. Same as GWC, that understands our requirements and has made it work for us in terms of the physical movements.
Speaking of those partners, I want to address the next question to Matthew Phelps, General Manager of GWC. We were just speaking about challenges, and I've asked the other panellists about that. What are some of the challenges that GWC has faced and is likely to face going forward?
Well, I think some of it is about congestion. We talked about 1.5 million people coming in, 1.2 million. You talk about all of the technology that's coming in, like Jose said, and it's for us to understand. Now, we're lucky. We've been working on events since 2010, 2011, so we've had this gradual build up to a crescendo that's going to hit us towards the end of next year. And Mark's right, you see that entire supply chain, which you don't see normally in logistics. When you work in retail, you're in the box and then you deliver to the supermarket, but you don't see either end. But the public's starting to see that now, and that's the legacy that hopefully this World Cup will leave in Qatar, and GWC will, be part of that. So the immense challenges here, not least getting people in place for a short period of time, but a very busy period of time. So working with the authorities to do that is very important to us too. So yeah, it's an interesting overall logistics challenge.
Certainly is. Before I continue on with the panel, I just wanted to point out that if you have any questions for our panellists, you'll see on your tables and also at home, if you head to slido.com and add in GWC Forum, you can actually ask our panellists some questions, and we'll have time at the end where we can go through those questions, and Slido is spelled SLIDO.com. Okay, Jose, over to you now. How has time been a factor in the logistics ahead of 2022? Is it something that, the last 12 months are really important, or the build-up over 4 years? Talk to us about those time factors.
Yeah, I think the people in the room here understand how time and logistics, the interplay between them, but there's something that does catch us out a little bit in that when we're doing this plan for the FIFA Football World Cup 2022, we done that 4 years ago. And we didn't know how things are on the ground here. So now this plan, this was 4 years old, we've had to constantly update and change and modify as we've learned stuff. And that's actually quite difficult to do, because that initial time plan that we've done 4 years ago is out of date after 1 year, once we learn how things work here. So I think the difficulty is a time plan and updating it as you learn stuff. It's very difficult to forecast and foretell how long things take in different countries. And I think that's a difficult thing. We couldn't predict COVID. So there's just so many variables that come in with that initial plan that we submitted 4 years ago to where we are today, 1 year out.
I was going to say 4 years ago, no one would have even known what COVID-19 was. And now, 2 years later, you've got the difficulties around COVID-19. That leads me to my next question with Kirsten. And you did mention that in your first answer a little bit about some of the challenges that you face, particularly around the pandemic. What extent have things like operational restrictions, shipping delays, and that supply chain issues as a result of COVID, what kind of extent has that had? What extent has that had on your operational restrictions going forward?
Right, tremendous. Talking about countries closing down, pilots not being able to lay over, cabin crew not being able to be available now specifically for logistics and cargo. We actually do need cabin crew, because on many freighters also a new phenomenon out of the pandemic is cargo on where the seat used to be, right? So you do need sometimes a bit of cabin crew on that. But I think that we, after this country shut down and a lot of other countries, adapted our processes really rapidly in order to continue to fly. And I think that's what we've shown throughout the last 2 years, is that we never stopped. And what we always say is that Qatar Airways didn't know any borders, because we can continue to fly, and still now to up to 140 destinations. So the connectivity of our network remained the strength throughout all the challenges that we had, and made sure that we could not only bring passengers home. One of the anecdotes we always say is that the weirdest origin to destination we saw was somebody from Korea via Doha wanted to go back to New Zealand. And those were the things that you saw changing. And even when cargo, the commodities that you suddenly saw, and now with shipping lines obviously being very constrained and items being, moving to air cargo, you've seen the weirdest phenomenons suddenly moving to cargo, and therefore new processes and new techniques, new handling, ways of handling were required to be able to be made up in a very short amount of time. So I think that has already learned us a lot. And in addition, I think the vast volume that we saw, I mean, the hub that we have here in Qatar is suddenly not doubled with double volume, right? So the creativity of our handling partner, CAS Cargo, part of Qatar Airways, and being able to double the volume and still being able to handle that with high quality was something that we never had foreseen 2 years back. And now, of course, with the FIFA coming and the anticipated volumes, and I think that is also a bit of the difficulty to estimate, so what would that look like? Is it suddenly much more food, or is it suddenly much more charters? And how do you protect your capacity and able to still serve your regular customers, but being able to cater for an event? Because like the hub cannot suddenly grow, we can also just not buy 10 new planes overnight, right, in order to do that. So tailor-made solutions and making sure we can serve still our customers, and in addition, this event is something that we're really working hard on to balance that and to make sure that we actually know how to approach that.
Gosh, I'm surprised you've had any sleep over the last 2 years. It sounds like it's been very busy.
Yes,
and
correct.
I'm pretty sure that Qatar Airways actually helped many Australians get home. So they've been very instrumental in helping many passengers. Moving away from the pandemic, because I think we're all a little bit over it. Matthew, let's talk a little bit about Qatar and the region and what makes this so desirable going forward for mega events such as the World Cup and Expo 2020.
Oh, and this is the first one in Qatar and the Middle East as a whole, right? And there's a desire to be able to showcase the GCC, the Middle East, and everything that goes with that. I think people have certain preconceptions about the Middle East. I can tell you now, having been here for over 10 years, they're wrong. It's a great place to live, it's a great place to work, and there are some fascinating things to see and do. But I think, you know, Qatar itself is trying to drive that recognisable way of the Middle East being able to host people, and it's absolutely part of their DNA. So the World Cup will be a fantastic event, and you see the stadiums all done already, which is remarkable. What, last one a year out maybe, something like that, and now we're getting ready and we're doing all the overlay and we're doing all the logistics, all of the planning and everything that goes with that. So, yeah, I think it will be a tremendous event, definitely.
Mark, I saw that you were nodding. Do you have anything to add in terms of the benefits of this region?
I think the biggest thing that the FIFA World Cup will add are to help express to the world is the hospitality that Qatar has and the Middle East offers to people, and change some of those misconceptions that you talked about. I think that's the biggest piece that is exciting to me. Is a lot of people may not even know where Qatar is right now, but they will in a year's time. And I think that's really exciting for us who are able to be fortunate enough to be involved in it, and for those who live here long term. I think that's the biggest thing that I see as a benefit, because it just opens more doors, right?
Jose, what has been some of the discussions around having the 2022 World Cup here in terms of it being in a Middle Eastern country?
So really, just from the logistics side, was the compactness of the place. It's very compact. If I'm thinking like where we're going for the next Football World Cup, it's the Americas. So that's 3 countries, 2 continents. That's huge. Some of the challenges that we've had is the compactness, and that compactness, the smallness of Qatar means that lots of resources are limited. So they're the discussions we've had within logistics, is how do we best utilise the limited resources that are in the country, for instance trucks, and how do we best exploit the compactness and gain the efficiencies that we wouldn't have had in somewhere like Russia, which is very large. So
you mentioned, sorry to interrupt, you mentioned in your opening that you did have some of those challenges though in some other countries where you were driving for 12 hours. So there are those challenges of it being small, but there must also be some benefits in it being so compact as well.
Yes, I mean, personally for me, I can get to any one of the stadiums within 1.5, 2 hours. So that's easy. We won't have that in the Americas. And as I was saying, in Rio de Janeiro, that distance, if I had to go to a stadium in Manaus, it's 12 days and 12 days back by truck. So that's difficult. If there's a problem there, that's difficult. Yeah, so there are benefits to the compactness. But just to echo what the guys say, I step in and out of Qatar, come in and out, and I've just found it a pleasure to work here, really. Yeah, an absolute pleasure.
What about the role of technology on logistics, just moving away from Qatar and talking about it in a more holistic approach? How, and please feel free, any of you, to jump in, how has technology changed what you've done, and how has it made it easier and maybe harder as well? Kirsten?
Yeah, so in air cargo, we are quite behind the technology curve when it comes to digitization, and it's been a talking point for the last few years. You know, where you have Uber, you know exactly where they are at a given time. We still struggle with that in air cargo because not everything is tagged. So, you know, when you have your WhatsApp when last seen, that's a little bit how we track in the air cargo business. It's not like, oh, you know where you right here are. So the technologies that we're doing and the online capabilities of serving your customer at a very quick way. Again, in air cargo, it's still very much a people business, picking up the phone and doing business like that. And so we're rapidly rolling out in the coming year platforms in order to do business with us online to make sure you know where your shipment is. Because again, else you'll be dependent off of calling somebody again, right? So in view of that, we are exploring or actually in doing it right now, a digitalization roadmap to transform the way that we do business with our customers. So the customers, which in our industry are more the forwarders, of course, can actually give the shippers the visibility to know at what point in time where their shipment is located. So we are putting a lot of pressure on that, and we are, it's one of our main agenda points right now in Qatar Airways Cargo in order to develop that, yeah.
Matthew,
Yeah,
technology?
technology has changed dramatically. 20 years ago, we were using bits of paper to pick, right, Jose? Now, we're using mobile phones, we're using radio frequency devices, the whole thing. We can track a vehicle within minutes. We're all learning that, but in logistics, that's been at the forefront. And it really has changed stuff. And when you look at the e-com piece, which has taken off here in Qatar, people are suddenly seeing vehicles turn up. Years ago, they had to go to the shop, and they never understood what the vehicle was doing. Now, Jose mentioned people don't really know logistics, but they're starting to, man. I'm getting questions. Why is my vehicle not there? Why was the driver not wearing the shoes? Why wasn't he carrying the right tote? Why was the tote dirty? Where did it come from? How did you do that? And suddenly that is becoming right in the forefront. So for someone that's been in logistics so long, it's great to see people actually getting involved in it and understanding it. So technology's been a driver to that, absolutely. The mobile phone and the advent of that immediacy has really changed the landscape. And GWC's sort of been doing that innovative drive for quite some time. And we're seeing all of that, and you're seeing all the drones and the robots and everything else that's coming through. So, you know, in a few years' time, maybe there won't be need for people like me anymore. Or people on the end of the phone calling a freighter, right? It will just be ding, 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 there we go. It'll just be like Uber. In fact, I think Uber were trying to do commercial vehicles. You order one, so yeah. It's amazing.
Jose, did you have, Mark, how has technology changed what the Supreme Committee does?
I think that I echo what Matthew said. We're doing everything we can to be as innovative as we can with this event, and kind of what we've been saying is taking event logistics into the 21st century. So we're getting out of the papers and the spreadsheets and try to build systems where we can. But I think one of the things I've been really keen on for the last few years is, if I can digress just for a minute, you talked about the supply chain. In logistics, oftentimes it's this turnover. So you get a good and you turn it over in the warehouse and you send it out to the final customer, and that's the last time we as logistics would see it. But in the event world, we have the reverse logistics or the dissolution. So we have to actually recover all the assets we purchased and then work out what we do with those after the fact. And there's a huge asset management, asset tracking piece to that. And it's a lot of administrative work. And I've been really keen to learn more about how blockchain technology is going to affect event logistics in the future, because what that technology could allow people to do is from the source, let's say from a procurement perspective and a contracts, all the way through the production to the delivery, and that blockchain technology would be able to track a good from beginning to end and then back again. So this asset management, this recovery piece, this dissolution piece, it could be a huge boost in what we do and take a lot of, I don't know if we're ever going to replace the people. I think logistics is a people-based industry. I think we need the people to be able to do what we do, but when we talk about the security of that kind of technology and what it can do to help formalize a lot of the audit processes that we endure, it's a big part of what we do from an event side. So all of the assets that we procure and handle, we have to track. And we talk about more than 700 sites across the tournament footprint in Qatar. Everything that we tip upside down and dump out of the stadium, we have to track in one way or another. So I think technologies like that in the future are going to be a big part of mega event logistics.
Jose, how do you see technology playing a role logistically with the 2022 World Cup? And obviously you mentioned a little bit in your opening speech, just that 4-year lead up. Obviously technology changes so quickly in just the 4 years.
So to start with Qatar, I think the team have been very modest actually. The leap forwards that we've seen in technology by the team as FIFA has been huge actually. It's superb the work that they're doing. 2 systems in particular, the vendor delivery portal, where vendors can see how to bring their items into the stadiums and also how to bring items into Qatar. It's superb. It's an innovation that we haven't seen before as FIFA. And secondly, with the customs, the digitalisation by Qatari Customs of the simplified procedures is superb. They've done a fantastic job. So I think that the guys are very modest, really. We as FIFA have seen a tremendous leap forward. As for 2026, the next one, I think we'll be using Qatar as our foundation, as our base, projecting onto that the new steps, the new enhancements and advancements in the technology, and let's see where we go. It's difficult to say now.
And obviously that technology will play a role in terms of the pandemic and making sure that people are vaccinated and have negative COVID tests. How do you see that playing out?
Well, as for the people, I'm not really quite sure. I mainly move stuff, not people. But your question,
the technology side of things.
Your question is right. Your question is right though, because if you're moving people, people consume stuff. And as Matthew was saying, like the 1.2 million people here and so on. For us, we're modelling a lot. Those 1.2 million people that are coming here, Matthew said about retail logistics, we're using technology to model what those people will be doing while they're in Qatar. Where will they be eating? Where will they be sleeping? Where will they be drinking? How many matches they'll go to? So we've got a lot of emphasis on modelling what those people will be doing, so we can pick our bits up, which is logistics, to complement the bits that they'll be consuming. And as Matthew was
because
saying,
that's a key part, right? You've got to be able to forecast what's going on. And when you look at the sort of the models that we're trying to use now, that gets us closer to an accuracy that's acceptable. You know, if you look at most retail forecasting, it's plus or minus 20%. We're trying to get into the sort of 5% realm because of some of the constraints. The 2 ports you mentioned, the immediacy of all the people coming on top of a population. You know, you're basically doubling the population pretty much. So, you know, it's a really interesting challenge, and one that I think FIFA will take away to other events and go, okay, maybe some of that was different, but some of it will be absolutely relevant at that point in time. And technology will be a real foundation to that.
And what about the impact on as a result of the technology, then the security elements of that as well, and having to manage that? Kirsten, is that something that you guys will have to consider?
Yeah, definitely, depending on, we see security is already, let me first say safety, and then security is already part of our DNA, and everything we do on a day-to-day basis and stands on our number 1 agenda. So I think for Qatar Airways as a group and as a whole, for all the subsidiaries, it's in our DNA. So for us, of course, extra security here and there, we need to look into what that would mean in terms of process improvement, training of the right people, having the right people working for us, of course, at that time as well, which we already started with, making sure we have the right competencies and skill set in addition what we have today. So that's definitely on our agenda, but it is already our number 1 priority, safety and security.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's now time for some questions. I see some questions up on the screen. And of course, if you guys have some questions, head to slido.com. Now, I'm not sure exactly who they're addressed to, so jump in if you think it's addressed to you. I'll start with the first one. What benefits are there to a country hosting mega events in a post-pandemic world that is more hesitant to travel? Well, I think that relates to everyone.
Well, we need to brag. I mean, if we do it very well, then I think from a logistics perspective specifically, and we hear that all the time, the location and the heat of the location, and being able to transport the various commodities in a very secure, safe way and qualitative way is something that we still, I guess, are judgmental, or certain customers still doubt on. So if we can pull this off in the right way with what I hear, what Jose says, with the newest technology, and I think it is a compliment to hear that would be the baseline for the next one. I think this is the opportunity to shine as a logistics hub. Look at the Qatar free zone, look at the port, look at the airport. I mean, so we have it all, not in a very big way, but all the criteria are available. So I think this is the chance to make it work for sure. Yeah.
But also in sport, fans want to be in the stadiums.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
sure.
we've seen that in Europe when there was no fans. It was, I don't think it lost its luster, but it definitely was different, right? People want to get there, and you see fans from all over the world, and they'll do amazing things to get to watch their team play. Truly amazing things. So it's just about us giving them the enabler, Qatar Airways being the enabler, us being the enabler to make it a fantastic event and something that they want to come to. But I can tell you now, I get loads of phone calls. Got any tickets yet? Have you got that?
People are asking me for tickets,
Oh,
and
no.
I'm just attending this event.
Tickets to the event?
Did the shortage in truckers affect the transportation of supplies in Qatar? So I assume
Sorry, I missed that. Shortage of...
truckers affect the transportation of supplies in Qatar. I'm assuming...
No,
during the
not
pandemic?
right now. We were fully manned up to be able to cope with all of the challenges that have happened over the last few years. We're very lucky. We've got a business continuity plan that's been sort of activated a couple of times in the past, let's say, and we used that, which meant that we had the right number of people. For the volumes for the World Cup, we're already planning that with Mark's teams and Jose's teams to say, how many people do we need and what do we need to be here? The people's one thing, the trucks are another. And then when you layer the congestion on as well, they're the things that we have to think about. And that's what we're planning very hard to do. And the technology we talked about before, tracking the vehicles, tracking the people is a key element to that. So, yeah, to answer the question, we haven't had a problem. Is it on our radar? Absolutely.
Next question. After the pandemic, the production from most factories is less than, where am I reading? Less than before. So how will that affect the supply chain process? After the pandemic, the production from most factories will be less than before. So how will that affect the supply chain process?
I think from my perspective, and having gone through a procurement cycle already for these events and seeing the challenges that we're facing, I haven't seen that the factories are producing less, but I'm seeing the constraints on the suppliers and the forwarders are more extreme than they were before. So we talk about costs in freight. Jose mentioned the container shortage and some of the challenges from a global supply chain. All of these costs impact that supplier who might be in China, for example, and manufacturing these goods in their factory. And then timelines are also affected. So what we find more than less goods being produced is that they're harder to get the goods as quickly as we used to get them. And then you compound that on something that you had mentioned earlier, Kirsten, about logistics is a very delicate balance of finding that scalability that's sustainable. And I don't mean sustainable in an environmental aspect, I mean long term. So Qatar Airways, I imagine, could scale up, buy more aircraft to get through this 18 months, but then what do they do with those extra 10 or 15 aircraft that they don't need as part of business as usual? The factories find the same thing. They may be able to scale up their production for a short period, but the costs against that is difficult. So there's a conscious decision of where they can max out their production. And I don't think they're producing less. I think there's a higher demand in a shorter amount of time, and there's less available based on all of those constraints that we're talking about. And that's what we're seeing here. Referenced earlier those 3 containers that we had to track. That was one of the reasons we were facing that, because it just takes much longer.
And to be a bit of a supply chain geek, it's the inventory that is causing some of those fluctuations. So they become reliant when they can't produce, and then they're chasing to catch up. Whereas, and the fine balance is absolutely right, because that normally stays pretty status quo. And then all of a sudden, if there's something that impacts it, it changes how they're going to work. And that's one of the key elements as well. Back away from being a kid.
The next question from Zaid. After the pandemic, the production from most factories is less. Did we answer that already?
Looks like a duplicate.
Okay, it was a duplicate. All right, I thought I was going a little insane. Is logistics getting easier with technology, or is technology actually making it more complex? I guess we did touch on that, but your thoughts, nevertheless. Is technology a good or a bad thing?
It's a great thing when everything's going fine, but it gives you more more transparency. So, previously a vehicle didn't quite arrive on time, there might have been a good reason, but now the customer and everyone else can see where it is. So. But that's good. The benefits far outweigh that.
And I think we did address that earlier in the discussion. I think this is the perfect question to end on.
Okay.
Can we say that the 2022 World Cup in Qatar will open doors for other countries similar to Qatar's geography to play host for future World Cup tournaments? I guess it's more general about the region and what benefits the World Cup will have going forward. I'd love everyone's thoughts on that. So perhaps I'll start with you, Jose.
Yeah, I think it upskills a region, really. If I look at my personal case, what happened to me in London, it upskilled myself, I was very fortunate, people in that region. So I think that's fantastic for that region. For here, I think Mark understands better than I do about the upskilling of his team, because he has teams, same with Matthew as well. So yeah, those teams just don't disappear, they're still here. So they move within the region, so it gives other countries within the region the opportunity as well. I think it's a good thing.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the complexities that go into the awarding of a tournament like this, or a mega event like the World Cup, it's hard to say that any other country that has this geography is going to be able to do the same thing that Qatar has done, right? Because I think each nation is unique. But to Jose's point, we, from a mega event perspective and logistics specifically, we're huge on the transfer of knowledge. So what has worked in a previous event or what hasn't worked in a previous event greatly informs what we do the next time and the next time and the next time. And I think that what this will do is, it's something I like to say is that to our teams is, it's a little bit cliche now, but everybody understands it, is we're doing something here that's never been done before and may never be done again. So when I talk about the compactness of this, that a spectator can go to 2 matches in the same day, it's never been done that way. We've never had an integrated logistics model like we have through Q22, FIFA, and the host country through the Supreme Committee with a partner like GWC. This is the last tournament that's going to have 32 teams in it. So when you look at all of these different things that have never been done before, and looking at that of going to a new tournament model and a new geography, it may never happen again, but what it will do is show what is possible. So when other nations or other regions want to do something similar, there's going to be an example there, and I think all we can hope is that it's a good example. So.
Kirsten, your thoughts?
Selfishly, I think the benefit, and although the country size is small, if you talk just about this area, is that the advantage that we have is that we have the biggest international air cargo carrier in the world from this country. So when you talk about reliability of logistics and air cargo being highly required, it makes our life a little bit easier. So I wouldn't envy another country that easily that wouldn't have that, being more reliant on third parties, right? Because of course we can't do everything by ourselves. I don't have the vision that all the cargo will come in on our aircraft, for sure not. But it does give you a good leverage in order to coordinate the logistics. So it's definitely possible. I think when you talk about size and culture, that we can really show it's possible anywhere else in the region. From a specific air cargo logistics, I do think that Qatar has the advantage of having the airline that can take away a lot of headache in organizing these events. Yeah,
I think we can all appreciate that.
Yeah.
Shall I just go?
Yes, and Matthew,
if I take it a bit more regional.
Yeah.
If you look at Qatar 2006 Asian Games, it was suddenly a catalyst that these countries can do stuff like that. Then you look at what's going on now. F1 here, F1 Bahrain, F1 Abu Dhabi, all of the events that are going on in Saudi Arabia and places like that. Suddenly, there are so many mega events that are actually taking place in the Middle East. just like Europe did. So people are realising, yeah, we can do it. And you see a World Cup like this. And I'm sure there will be other events. There are already one for 2030 here and all of that stuff going on. So I really think that the Middle East as a whole is starting to really drive that event stuff and becoming a real attractive place for people to come.
Yeah.
And you know, GWC in Qatar have spent an awful lot of time building ourselves up from when 2010 it was announced all the way to now. It's no surprise that our warehouses are quite close to the stadiums. Geography, obviously, but also some planning that went into that as well. So, yeah, I think the Middle East has got a good future and will definitely drive some of that stuff. And people want to come. Look at the F1. You know, suddenly announced and everyone's going, can you get me tickets?
It's certainly a very exciting time, and the F1 was supposed to be in Melbourne, my home city, and now it's here in Qatar, so it's worked out really well. Everyone, please give our panellists a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you very much. And we'll just take a short break, and we'll be back with our second panellist very shortly. Thank you, everyone.
Are you ready to grow your business? Venture into one of the strongest and fastest growing economies in the world, Qatar.
Doing business in Qatar is easy, efficient, transparent, and getting simpler by the day.
Get unparalleled market access and support by setting up at the Qatar Financial Center, 100% foreign ownership, and many other benefits. Are you ready to grow your business? Venture into one of the strongest and fastest growing economies in the world, Qatar.
Doing business in Qatar is easy, efficient, transparent, and getting simpler by the day.
Get unparalleled market access and support by setting up at the Qatar Financial Center, 100% foreign ownership, and many other benefits. Are you ready to grow your business? Venture into one of the strongest and fastest growing economies in the world, Qatar.
Doing business in Qatar is easy, efficient, transparent, and getting simpler by the day.
Get unparalleled market access and support by setting up at the Qatar Financial Center, 100% foreign ownership, and many other benefits.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start our second panel discussion, so if you can make your way to your tables, that would be wonderful. And we'll be with you in just a few moments. Just wait for everyone to sit down and then we'll wrap. And everyone, beautiful. All right, thank you everyone for joining us. Just a reminder, I'm Emily Angwin. I'm the host and moderator for today's event. And our second panelist, the discussion point is regional transformation. And we will discuss not only the transformation we've witnessed, but how technology has played a role in that transformation and the impact the region's financial and educational platforms have had. So welcome to our panelist. I'd like to first introduce Layla Al-Jafari. She's the Vice President of Business Development at Qatar Financial Centre. We have Beda Al-Madhadi, the Investment Promotion Lead for the Qatar Free Zone Authority. We have Laurie Bakar, the Head of Retail and Private Holdings at Google Cloud. And then we have Hamdan Merchant, the Senior Director of Innovation, IT and Operational Excellence at GWC. Please give our panellists a round of applause, please. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with a little bit about what makes this region so desirable. Let's start with you, Beda. What makes this region so desirable?
Of course, you know, now the region is hosting these mega events, and the region is showing the growth potential in terms of the capabilities and the abilities to host. An example of that is the World Cup, to host such big events. And this also shows and exposes to the world the potential and the infrastructure that we have. So for such big events to succeed, we have these institutions to support these big events. From our side, the Free Zone, we try to be part of the success in terms of providing investors with the opportunities to join us here, to become part of these events, and also pushing for future growth as well, in terms of providing the opportunities, the advantages, and the new infrastructure that we have in the country.
Hamdan, from GWC's perspective, how do you see this region being so desirable?
I mean, it's a great opportunity, right? Qatar is, this is a great excuse for Qatar to step up with technology. We always were moving towards that, but because of this mega event coming in, we're moving in a lot faster than what is expected. So now is a great time to invest in technology, invest in real estate, invest in processes, right? The new port coming in. So this is a perfect time to get all the boxes checked in and help the country move forward.
Laurie, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that technology that Hamdan mentioned. To what extent do you think digitalisation and technology has changed the region, or is changing the region?
I think it has a huge impact, and we've seen it with the hyperscaler coming in the country. And Qatar is, with our partner QFZA, we have really built a region as Google Cloud here recently, and the agreement was built in 2019. So it's really building up with more and more players in the market. And I think really the opportunity maybe to link back to the previous panel is coming in addressing all this complexity that we see building up, hosting those mega events really, but also, you know, in supply chain, product, retail, private sector. Really what we want to do with technology is trying to build tools, building on AI and machine learning to try and help on those challenges. And one of the core places where we actually try and help and solve those challenges is automation. But to reach the automation use cases, automation can be many things. It can be fleet management. It can be, okay, we're going to help you personalize your products. We're going to help you track customer feedback in a real-time way. It can be many, many things. But in order to get there, you need a data strategy. And this is where Google and Google Cloud in general, we try to play and help build that in the region.
What are some of those challenges, just to sort of dissect a little bit, what are some of those challenges that technology and the advancement of technology have created for Google Cloud?
The challenges in terms of us or in terms of our customer? For us, I think,
both.
Okay, so for us, I think, usually we try and take our customers where they are at, and I think, you cannot build this automation and AI machine learning capabilities without having some data strategy and data readiness, which I think is very important. This is what we really try and help our customer with. I think some of the challenges sometimes is talent, finding the right skill set. But in a way, with the pandemic and the acceleration of collaboration tools and the way we connect more easily globally, I think this gap has really shrinked. And we can bring now today any startup in Doha or any big group can actually connect with anyone in the world and bring that skill set really to. So I think one of the big challenge was and still remains talent. And we invest a lot as Google Cloud. We have launched in partnership with QFZA as well, the Center of Excellence. And we already have 3,000 registries for that program. This program is fully aimed at Doha talents in order to train them into the technology and new technology as well going forward. So I think, yeah.
That leads me to my question for Leila. What does future investment look like for the region?
Actually, the foreign direct investment into the region, we saw an increase in the FDI inflow into the region, especially back in 2020. While it was slowing down in other economies and other markets all over the world. And there was a report by the economics stating that the FDI into the GCC countries has raised by 12.4%, which is around 27 billion US dollars. And for us, for the KFC, this increase was tangible as we saw a lot of a new firm registering under our platform. And this increase was remarkable for us because it was around 78%. And this allowed us to add more activities into our platform just to create a more commercial opportunities for our investors. And also we can see that Qatar is continuously, or Qatar shows the growth and the economic strength with the preparation of the World Cup 2022. And adding more activities into the tourism sector. Also, Qatar providing more opportunities for investors and new firms who would like to come and establish their presence in Qatar by providing them a range of resources, access to capital, providing them with incentives, just to create like a more business conductive, business friendly ecosystem and supporting the firms and investors from consideration to operation and expansion.
That leads nicely to Beta. What sectors have benefited most from this recent transformation of the region?
Well, it is difficult to identify certain sectors because we saw growth across many different sectors. Here in our free zone, for example, we have some sort of focus on several sectors where we have a strong value proposition. For example, logistics. We are utilizing the strength of Qatar Airways as it's one of the strongest airlines in the world. We have the infrastructure in terms of Hamad International Airport, which is one of the best in the world. We have Hamad Seaport with its new infrastructure. So proof of that, we see how the logistics industries are growing in the free zone and also in Qatar. Besides that, we have other sectors such as chemicals and industrial. And for these sectors, we have this is in terms of utilizing the wide range of chemical products from our oil and gas industry. In addition, we have the emerging technology, which is the inevitable future, and proof of that is our colleagues from Google and the technological projects that are ongoing in our free zone. So this doesn't mean that we don't focus on on other sectors as well. We have focus on many different sectors. Biomedical, of course, now it's proven that's very important. and also food and beverage, and many other sectors as well. However, I believe these sectors have a strong value proposition from our side, and I see that there will be future growth across all other sectors as well.
Hamdan, what role do you see small businesses play in the transformation of this region?
So I think what Laurie touched based on digitization, and that's the new, that's accelerated really because of the pandemic. And now e-commerce has taken this to another level. E-commerce has come down to this region, Qatar. So now it's all about data. How do you stay a step ahead of the customer, right? There's a research shows that in 2021, 96% of the customers want delivery the same day, right? In 2019, they could wait a couple of days, but now they want the same day, if not within the next 30 minutes. So how do we support that as logistics? So that's the key focus of us and everyone around. How do we get to that level? And for us to do that, there's a lot of focus on last mile delivery. That's a big focus. How do we get last mile delivery? How we streamline that aspect? But that's just one part of supply chain. We're also looking at across the complete supply chain. If it's coming from China to Qatar, how do we get it here fast? How do we get it here smoothly? And I think the last panel touched based on technology visualization. We are moving towards knowing exactly where a container is. That's the new way of running business. Again, technology plays a big role. Big data plays a big role. AI, artificial intelligence, we cannot undermine it. Human intelligence is important. It's very, very important. But it needs to be augmented with AI because human intelligence is a finite resource at the end of the day. AI is what takes us to the next level. So I think that's where the next focus is, how we can leverage all of this data and move to the next level.
Laurie, I noticed you were nodding during that. Did you have anything to add to what Hamdan was saying?
Yeah, I think I can fully relate. I mean, the pandemic has accelerated the change. I think depending on the studies, it's said to be 3 to 5 years acceleration that we have seen in the past year, right? And that has actually led to a change in priorities in logistics. And the top priorities are, for instance, the real-time visibility on end-to-end operation, for instance. And the reason for that, and the previous panel touched on that, is that there is an increase in irregular operation in supply chain. You have the pandemic hitting you. You might have people sick. You might have, countries you cannot travel to, and you have that. And at the same time, you have a very big expectation on the consumer side, on personalization, real-time delivery, real-time tracking. So in order to manage that on top of the human capital, you need to leverage the technology. And I think this is a great point he made.
How has digitalization and technology, and you guys have sort of touched on it, how has that changed consumer behavior? Laurie, I want to get your thoughts on that first of all.
Yeah, I mean, we both touched on that. I think there are 3 key points. It's definitely one of the things that we've seen as Google search is a huge increase in the past 2 years in the product availability search. So we saw a 6-fold increase in this product X near me, right? So this type of search. So ahead of the FIFA, I think it's key for companies in Qatar to make sure they have that visibility, they build that visibility, and they build the relevance. One, they need to find you, but they need to find you for the right thing as well. So I think that's definitely one of the big things that consumer will expect coming here. Second one, and we touched on it, is definitely live updates. If you order something, you'll want to track it every step of the way, and this is not anymore a nice to have, this is a must, and this is expected now. So the expectation has raised, and for that, to deliver that, you need a data strategy, you need your data to be in the right place, and this is what, as Google, we help companies with. And the last one is really personalization, relevance. We want, it's not about being found, it's about really delivering the right thing to the consumer. So this is really what I see as a shift.
And what do you think, Beto, in terms of technology and how that's helped the Qatar Free Zone?
Of course, it helped a lot talking about it in terms of application-wise, sharing information, and also interacting with investors as we try to make it smooth and interactive through the digitalization and through also having softwares and applications for them for future communication in order to ease this communication As you know, in our free zone, we provide administrative assistance to our investors, and this is a way to differentiate. So we try to do it in a way that it is more practical. We are developing it and digitalizing it so that it can be like easy access. It can be through online services or through application and software on the mobiles. And this will differentiate us, and this is eventually the future in terms of providing services to people.
And what role has technology played for the QFC?
Actually, we have fully digitized our incorporation and registration process to make it easier and smoother for investors to set up their business in Qatar. And we have also, during the pandemic, at QFC, we have quickly transitioned our outreach plans and events into virtual ones to keep engaging with our stakeholders and clients from all over the world.
So we've spoken a little bit about some of the benefits and opportunities as a result of the transformation. I want to sort of talk about now about some of the challenges, and our previous panel did touch on sort of geographically some of the challenges. Hamdan, I'll start with you from an innovation perspective.
I think the biggest challenge is a changing technology, a changing consumer expectations, right? Now there's a speed to innovation. We can't go slow. I think I read a quote recently somewhere, and I think it applies to GWC very well. It's not the big fish that eats the small fish anymore in today's world. It's a fast fish that will eat the slow fish. So we want to be the fast fish here in GWC. We want to be the first one to innovate, and we want to be a step ahead from what the consumer is thinking. We don't want to be following. And that's where the innovation team is really focused on. What's the next thing that the consumer wants, say 2 years from now? We want to start now. We don't want to wait for it to happen and then we kind of reach there, because by the time we reach there, the consumer has moved on to the next level. So I think that's the key. How do we stay ahead of the curve? And again, coming back to data, data is something that helps us to get there. Data is unique to each of its company. Everything else can be shared. They can have the processes, they can have everything else, but GWC data, only GWC has that. How do we leverage that data and come up with meaningful insights and move us to the next level? So that's the biggest challenge, and that's the biggest focus what we have right now.
Laurie, challenges from Google Cloud's perspective, and I think also I'd love you to touch on some of the security concerns as well, which I'm sure is a challenge with the technology advancing so rapidly.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point that anybody now can raise to a point very quickly and eat up the others. And I think for sure security has been one of the key top of mind, especially when we talk about cloud, and Google has opened a cloud region here. Security is always top of mind, and this is something that we address very seriously. Being a very public company, this is top of mind for us. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, so it's our role as a cloud provider to really educate the market, but also let them understand what are the steps we take and what are the things that we do compliance-wise, because security has many aspects, right? But security-wise, compliance-wise, privacy-wise, to make sure our customers are 100% safe. I think, as Google Cloud, the services we offer our customers are the same that are being used to power the Google applications, such as Google Maps, YouTube, search, etc. So we are very strict on our security policies, and the reason for that is simply we cannot afford on our B2C side and products to have any sort of security breach, right? So the same security level we serve our companies with, we will serve our customers with.
And Beta, it's something that we discussed before today, is the managing of data security as being a challenge for the Qatar Free Zone?
For data security and generally in terms of privacy and in terms of intellectual property, these are one of it's an important important factor that we would always want to assure the investors that we have a compliance with. We have a transparent regulatory system, and we are applying the international best practices. Also, in terms of the Qatar International Court, we have it also in order to assure investors that we look into this part of concern. We have regulations that enables the investors, that also enable the foreign direct investors in order to provide the environment for them to succeed. Because eventually we look at our free zone as a platform of innovation, and we always look for sustainability and growth and from Qatar, and this is our main goal.
Security and finance is obviously a very important aspect. What are some of the challenges? We want maybe move away from security and more just some of the challenges of the region's transformation from QFC's perspective.
Speaking about my experience with my clients, so maybe at the beginning we had some challenges explaining and let's say, for example, our online registration and cooperation. So because we used to receive our clients face to face, go through everything, you know, and then if they have any questions, and sometimes we have some clients that will be like, okay, I'm gonna give it to you on hand and then you deal with it, but not anymore. So yeah, so I think this is one, and then the QFC. We have adopted the new technologies to protect our data, especially while our employees were like, you know, remote. We had the remote regime,
working
from home. Was amazing. So yeah, so not to be honest, from the business development team, we didn't face that big of challenges, rather than try to communicate virtually with our clients instead of, you know, face to face.
And I'm sure age and nationality and all of that come into play as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how the increased competition in the region has been beneficial. Hamdan, do you see that as a case for GWC and its logistics?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what keeps us going to the next level. The increased competition that comes in there, it makes us think, and that's what I meant, we want to be the fast one. We don't want someone to come and we follow them. We want to be the first one to be there. So the competition has forced us to think outside our boundaries. And that's where the continuous improvement and operational excellence team comes in GWC. They are looking at the complete supply chain end to end. We're not looking at just one part of supply chain, what a customer looks end to end, and then we're looking at how we can take out the fat out of the process or the waste out of a process and put back in the muscle that is what the customer values or cares about. So we are constantly focused on that, constantly making sure we are ahead of the curve, improving operations, improving sustainability, and we'll be environmentally friendly. So we're looking at all of these aspects holistically and seeing how we can move to the next level. And that's where competition has fueled this.
Laurie, it's slightly different for Google though, obviously being almost a monopoly of its industry. I mean, do you guys face any competition? Is it something that you're focused on in terms of the region?
Oh, for sure, we have competition in the country. So for sure, actually, we're the second hyperscaler coming into the country. So we definitely face competition, and we're happy to be coming as a second player to offer customers in Qatar options. I think this is something that will be beneficial for anybody, any company in Qatar. I think other than that, really Google focus on itself, really trying to deliver the best service. So this is really the philosophy overall. So we always trying to just focus on the user, deliver the best solutions, and we believe business then follows.
We're just going to have some questions throughout our discussion rather than just at the end as well. And I'd like to encourage anyone to send their questions in through Slido, which is slido.com, and enter GWC Forum. Again, jump in if you think it relates to you and your industry. The first question I'm going to ask is about hospitality facilities and how will they look exaggerated after the World Cup compared to a small country, Qatar? How will you encourage people to invest and work in this business? So in terms of hospitality, I guess I'll speak to you, Hamdan, from a logistics perspective. I'll try and break down this question because there's a few elements to it. So I guess we spoke about it in the panel previously. The elements of the industry, say hospitality, that you need in the lead up to the World Cup, and then what it looks like when everyone leaves. Are those some of the challenges, and how would you address something like that?
Yeah, again, with this mega event, there's a lot of different pieces of hospitality that comes into play, right? We see the major parts like the hotels and so on, but there's a huge industry that when people are staying there, how do we get the linens there? How do we get the different products to them? We want to deliver them, track each of these, How do we do reverse logistics? How do it goes back, gets hygiene, cleaned back, and send it back there? And at the end of the event, how do we make sure we account this and send this back to us? I think that's a key, and things that normally you don't realize it, but once you have these mega events, these things also play a big role on it, and that's where our focus is on logistics, that we kind of cover all aspects of it.
Okay, for startups around the world, and I guess I'll address that to both Beta and to Layla. For startups around the world that want to get involved with innovation for the World Cup, Doha or Qatar, what are the opportunities to connect, or what are the solutions that are needed to get involved for startups? Layla, you're nodding.
Yeah.
Start with you.
Yeah, sure. So the QFC focuses into 4 different clusters. Those different clusters are digital, sport, media, and localization. Now,
Say them one more time so we can all.
Okay, digital, media, localization, and sports.
Great.
Now, talking about the sport, for example, we do provide incentives, and especially for the startup coming up from our stakeholders, like the startup accelerators, for example, coming from, let's say, the sport accelerator, the one in the Aspire, I mean, and then we have the QST, which is Qatar Sport Tech. So for the QFC, we provide them with like a fee waiver. Like in a normal case,
So you give incentives?
Incentives, yeah. So we provide them with a incentive, waiving the fees, providing with offices for free. The same thing applies on digital sector as well, as we do also provide them with a fee waiver and free offices if those startups, or if, let's say, for example, we have a startup that didn't necessarily come from one of the accelerators, we go and introduce them to the stakeholders and to the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem we have.
So you sort of act as like a mediator between?
Yeah.
What about you, Beta, in terms of the Qatar Free Zone Authority and its role?
Yeah, in terms of startups, or generally talking about projects, we are always supportive. We have a dedicated team who will work with the applicants who is interested to join the free zone, either startup or established company, where we provide them with the whole assistance needed from the day of inquiry until the day of the execution of the project. We have a dedicated team who will go through the application process, the registration, the permitting process, the visas. So this will all be aligned with our team, and it will ease such execution of a project. Other than that, depends on the potential of the project. It goes into consideration, and we always support the ones that would promote direct growth to the country as well. So there is some sort of this support. In addition to that, being part of the free zone in Qatar here, it gives you the opportunity and the advantage of working with our local big companies, and this is also a big advantage when you are established here in Qatar.
Explain to people who aren't necessarily across what the Qatar Free Zone is.
Sorry?
Explain what the Qatar Free Zone is for people that aren't aware of it watching online.
Yeah, Qatar Free Zone, it is a free zone that promotes the investments in Qatar for either local or foreign direct investors to come and become part of our zone. They can establish either office, or we have a ready-built unit where small projects can move into right away, or even when they try to phase their projects, they can move into our warehouses and then move into their execution of land. So we offer land plots, we offer warehouses, and we offer offices as well. From our side, the free zone generally, there are common direct offering. Like any other zone, which is the free taxation for 20 years, 100% foreign ownership, no custom duties, and these are general offering. But at the same time, there are indirect offering that are there to differentiate us, because compared to the region, we are new, and this brings a lot of challenges. But we have implemented many lessons learned, and this gave big opportunities. This showed many advantages. As I mentioned, working with the investors to smooth their transition to the free zone, it's a valuable thing, because you will be there for the investor through the whole process. Other than that, our top management didn't want to start from scratch, so they decided to hire a team with the different backgrounds from the local industries. For example, I come from oil and gas background. I have colleagues coming from medical institutions, colleagues coming from Qatar Airways background. And this creates a database to communicate with investors and share with them the overall idea about Qatar generally and investing here and replying to many of their inquiries and concerns.
Thank you for explaining that. Let's go back to that question in terms of startups. Laurie, what are your thoughts in terms of startups around the world and what Google Cloud can do in terms of enticing people to get involved in businesses here?
Yeah, I think we have a big responsibility as Google, being a player and coming into Qatar. I think, as every speaker mentioned, they have a responsibility. I think our responsibility is education, training, making sure that any digital native startups can leverage, our expertise in order to grow faster and adopt technology faster. And going back, I mentioned the Center of Excellence in the beginning, but this organization that we built in partnership with QFZA is actually focused on training free of charge talents within Doha itself and across the region. So it's a key responsibility that we take at heart, being a company started in a garage. So for sure, this is core for us.
Excellent. Hamdan, I'll ask you the next question that's on the screen there. What developments have been implemented to make the infrastructure in Qatar suitable for this transformation?
Absolutely, the road, highways, the traffic infrastructure, I think that plays a big role in making sure the logistics is smooth.
I think we're all aware of the traffic here in Doha and what it's like.
But what it was like before and what's now, there's a huge difference. Right. So, and then we see that big investment, and it's playing a big role to make sure logistics is a lot more smoother. The ports are state-of-the-art port. All these are the elements that make sure logistics and the movement is a lot more smoother. The technology that's coming in, the free zone authority, the warehouses, the processes that's improving in the customs. That's all the investments that has been thought of a few years ago, but we are seeing the fruits right now. So all of these are playing a big role in making sure we are a lot more efficient and smooth right now.
Exactly, and if I may add, these institutions have to develop, have to evolve in order to make such a big event succeed. And I think this is why such mega events are essential, because they eventually lead to the important development and development of these institutions in order to deliver the outcome that would lead to the success of these events. And this also reflects to how investors and how people look at the region and the country before and after the event when they see such success.
I want to go to that next question, which is, what does Qatar need to do, technically speaking, to prepare for the millions of guests that will descend on Doha? Our previous panel did touch on this a little bit, but I want to ask Laurie about what impact technologically it has, all these people being here in Doha. And from a technological perspective, we're all on our phones, we all need the internet. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it definitely has a huge impact in terms of technology and system for everybody that is going to take that incoming traffic of people being on their phone. Actually, we see studies that say people do not decide to buy anything without their mobile phone anymore. I think it's 87% of consumers use their mobile phone to make any purchasing decision.
87%?
Yeah, and that does not mean buying online. It's just, look, even if I'm in the store, I'll pull up my phone and I'll just check 2 or 3 things. Right, so this is really a huge opportunity, but also something that we need to get ready for at the to have that agility and scalability, which I think where cloud has a big role to play, because you actually, with the consumption model which grows with you, you can deliver that scalability and then scale down once the people leave, really, which is what you want. But in terms of companies here, that also means potentially data touch points that they can leverage to understand better how people purchase, how people behave, and how different nationalities might have different journey within Qatar. And this is, if you manage to actually understand that through collecting that data and building some analytics on top of it, I think this is really a huge insights that can be potentially monetize or build to new revenue streams, etc., etc.
Layla, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what new industries, and I guess that comes off the back of what Laurie said. What new industries and markets has this sort of transformation of the region allowed QFC to access? I mean, we've just thought of a few then with Laurie.
Yeah, so driven by the pandemic, we saw a huge increase in the financial sector and financial innovation, as we saw lots of firms registering in Qatar and fintech, for example, using the Qatar Financial Center as their launchpad to grow into the domestic market and expand beyond and into the region. And we also have another booming, let's say, industry in Qatar as Qatar fintech, Islamic fintech. And this industry is predicted to reach around $2 billion by 2025. This is what was tangible for the QFC, with also the other clusters that I have mentioned earlier. And I can say that, of course, as Qatar also is considered as a sport hub, we saw lots of new trends coming in the sport industry, especially such as gaming, e-gaming, and esports. We also cannot deny the contribution of other sectors such as tourism, healthcare, mega event projects, contribution to the Qatari economic.
Beda, I want to get you to answer one of the questions on the screen, which is the location of Qatar, the limits the nation's climate and terrain has. Does that limit the developmental scope of Qatar?
I think the location and the region, and when you're talking about the region, I think this gives an advantage because when you are here in Qatar, you are only maybe 8 hours of flying time away of 60% of the world population.
Except for Australia,
yeah.
Unfortunately.
And this is also equivalent to 5 days of sailing time. So when you are here, you have this accessibility into these growing markets. And with the infrastructure that we are trying to promote for and we are trying to build, I think this will give the opportunity for companies to see that and to acknowledge that and to become part of this region. And it doesn't have to be only in Qatar. I mean, there will eventually be cooperation across the region itself. But I think being here opens the doors towards whole new markets.
It certainly does. And Hamdan, we've got a question for you directly. What technologies have you applied to improve your operations?
I was hoping you asked that question to me.
Did you put that question in yourself?
No, so again, our focus is automation, a lot of automation in our warehousing operation, right? So one of the recent technologies that we implemented is voice picking. We probably are the first, if not the only one that's using it in the region, that's entire GCC region. What voice picking does is basically, instead of the traditional way of having a handheld scanner or a paper to pick, you have a headset and a mic, and you're talking back to the computer, and the computer is talking back to you. So they're giving you instructions, they're giving you commands, and you take step by step, and you follow, and you respond back to the computer. And this could be in any different languages. It's not just in one language. So that's improved drastically. When the efficiency went up by more than 20%. It's completely paperless, so we reduce all the papers. The speed for a new person to come in and learn, it's moved drastically as well. Other than that, we've also gone paperless operations throughout our GWC, or as much as possible. A complete freight department, we have gone to paperless, and that's saved millions and millions of pages, and that's literally millions every year. So we have taken that off, and we digitize complete end to end. So that's one saving is the sustainability part. The other is visibility. Now I'm sitting here, I know exactly what my process and where it is because everything is digital and everything is online. These are few of them. I could go on, but I think we'll run out of time. But I could go on and on with these things.
Laurie, did you have some comments to make? You were nodding during that.
Yeah, I actually want to add on that because I think we see a huge growth into actually technology department actually being tracked against sustainability KPIs, and this is something that we see as a trend, and we've taken that at heart. Being a carbon neutral company cloud, Google Cloud is carbon neutral, and I think this is really some of the big things that we have announced recently are actually sustainability tracker within our consoles and things like that. So I think, again, linking back to that, a lot of the responsibility and the initiatives that we see are sustainability driven, which I think is very important.
And I think that's a perfect way to end, because we're going to have a workshop in a few moments' time which will talk about the sustainability elements of the 2022 World Cup. But please, everyone, give a round of applause for our panellists. Thank you very much for your time. All right, we'll take a short break and then we'll be back with our workshop shortly, so stay tuned. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Help you. Thank you so much.
Are you ready to grow your business? Venture into one of the strongest and fastest growing economies in the world, Qatar.
Doing business in Qatar is easy, efficient, transparent, and getting simpler by the day.
Get unparalleled market access and support by setting up at the Qatar Financial Center, 100% foreign ownership, and many other benefits.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to make your way to your tables, we'll start with our first workshop in just a few moments' time. We'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to come down and sit at their tables, and then we'll be right with you. I'll just give them a couple of minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our first workshop titled FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 Logistics Mandate. Sayed Maz is the Chief Business Development Officer of GWC. He'll walk us through the necessary planning, coordination and execution needed for the logistics of mega sporting events. Please give him a round of applause, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's an honor to be here and to be representing GWC as the official logistics provider. As we all know, we've had some excellent sessions from panel 1 and panel 2. The panel 1 covered most of the logistics bit, so let me try and see what was not covered and put things in. Yeah, so as the official logistics provider for FIFA World Cup 2022, it's a large mandate. It's a large mandate as a logistics company that we have in terms of providing ease of logistics to make sure everything is delivered smoothly and the event is very, very successful. There is a lot of things which were earlier spoken in the morning that goes behind the scenes, which are unseen, untold, but there is a lot that goes on to make these events successful. So today I'm going to present to you how we are prepared and how well we are positioned to ensure this mandate is delivered seamlessly. So as we all know, Qatar is very unique to host the World Cup next year, simply because it's a one-city event which has its own challenges and complexities, while it has its own benefits as well. It's going to be the first carbon neutral World Cup, but in terms of logistics, it puts in a lot of pressure because it's a one-city event and mostly the venues are less than 60 kilometers apart. That's the maximum from one venue to the other. And one port, one airport, one land port. So that kind of complexes the whole supply chain. So how is it that GWC is prepared and how well are we geared up to ensure that this is delivered smoothly? Next slide, please. So I'm going to present to you at a glance in terms of what GWC is all about. We are the #1 logistics service provider in the country and the region. I'm proud to say that with the sheer infrastructure we have. GWC is a listed company in the Qatar Stock Exchange since 2004. Our biggest asset, our employees, 4,000 plus strong. So this has been significantly ramped up as per the planning to deliver next year's large mandate. We cater to more than 3,000 customers locally, regionally, and globally. We are a highly asset-driven organization with 4 billion riyals plus of asset capitalization, 1,500 trucks, trailers, which are part of our assets, which will cater next year and currently the ongoing Arab Cup as well. We are present across 20 locations in the country and in the region across the GCC. We represent UPS as the authorized service partner since 2015, managing the express requirements in the country. And in terms of our logistics footprint, we manage close to about 4 million square meters of warehousing space in the country. Like one of my colleagues puts it, that it's as if having Qatar under a roof, in 4 million square meters of warehousing footprint. So in terms of the footprint, next slide please. In terms of the local footprint and access, so we are kind of covered right from down south going up north, as you can see on the map. We are well positioned right from Mesaid, going up to Ras Laffan. As by luck or chance, it is across all the sporting venues which are planned for FIFA. So which means all of our distribution centers are within 20 kilometers of serviceable range from each of these distribution centers. And if you look at the geography of Qatar, we are well strategically positioned between the industrial areas, between the business clusters. So we are situated everywhere so that making it easy for the logistics to happen. So in continuation to the previous slide, these are different distribution centers and warehousing parks located all across the country, and within less than 20 minutes of driving distance to each of the stadiums, logistics compounds, the MLC, IBC, all of the facilities which will be catered from these facilities. Next slide. In terms of our offering for the World Cup next year, to make it a successful event, we are poised to provide an integrated logistics solution where it's a full range of supply chain services, ranging from freight forwarding, customs brokerage, transportation using our extensive fleet, last mile delivery, venue services, and last but not the least, the reverse logistics. So I'm going to touch upon a few critical elements which are most important and a lot of you are looking forward to in terms of logistical support to make this a successful event. In terms of our freight forwarding, so we have one of the largest freight forwarding teams in the region. We have a whole set of professionals which have the expertise to deliver what is required in terms of the global network. So we have a global presence. We are present through our partners globally. We can touch any point of the globe. We can move shipments seamlessly from across the globe into Qatar by sea freight, air freight, as well as land freight. So we provide a single point of contact wherein you don't have to deal with too many people. So our teams understand what your requirements are and we custom build based on what your needs are. Like if I were to give you some examples right now, ongoing Arab Cup, so the mobilization started almost 4 weeks ago. So these are scenes which are behind and which are unseen. As we speak, the stadiums are getting mobilized, the kitchens, the hospitality area, the food and beverages flowing in. So all of this is getting prepared for the 30th of November when the Arab Cup kicks in. Next slide. So our single point of contact will seamlessly manage all your supply chain flows, be it sea freight shipments, air freight shipments, move them into country, and in country we have one of the most professional and experienced customs brokerage team. So GWC has been recognized by the General Authority of Customs in Qatar as the best brokerage company consecutively. And we work very closely with Qatar Customs in terms of easing the processes. So we are kind of aligned along with the Supreme Committee, the FIFA, to ensure everything that's imported and which has to go back is done seamlessly. So we provide document consultation, be it for high value shipments, chemicals, hazmat, batteries. It could be ATA carne or temporary import. wherein it comes in and necessarily has to go back, because earlier in the panel one we heard that Qatar is a small geography, which means the consumption, it's a consumption economy, so everything necessarily has to come from outside, and not everything might be required to be present here, unlike the previous World Cups where Russia or Brazil were large countries where it was a multi-city event and things could be procured easily. So there is a lot of supply chain that goes behind the logistics here. In terms of the warehousing services, once custom cleared, we have the state-of-the-art warehouses, 3.8 million, 4 million square meters of warehousing space, where we provide different ranges. It could be ambient storage, it could be temperature controlled, chilled, frozen. We go up to -70, and I heard earlier the pandemic has done things very differently, and I'm proud to say that every single dose of vaccine that Qatar has received, GWC is proud to say that we've carried it through and through the supply chain, through the network, we've stored them, and we've also distributed them locally. So everybody in Qatar who's received the vaccine, GWC is proud to say that GWC has carried it. And also in terms of the food and beverage, in terms of all the consumables that get consumed locally, we are proud to say that we store them, we distribute them, we do the last mile delivery. So this applies to the World Cup requirements as well. So one of our warehousing parks will also host the Master Logistics Center, which will be the central distribution center for FIFA next year, through which all of the supply chain would be managed. In terms of venue services, like Jose earlier mentioned, you put the stadium, turn it around and put it down, everything that falls out is what is logistics. So it's a complex requirement for a mandate like FIFA. And there is a lot of planning that goes behind the scenes to ensure this is seamlessly delivered in terms of logistics. So we've been planning for, I think, more than a year to ensure that we ramp up not only in terms of people, infrastructure, resources, to ensure our customers have the peace of mind, have the flexibility, so we can support in terms of resources, manpower, equipment, whatever that's needed on site in terms of to mobilize and demobilize the venue services. So comprehensively to address this thing, right from, we are a one-stop solution, providing you door-to-door services, be it freight forwarding by sea, by air charters, by land freight, seamlessly doing the custom clearance. We can do the consultation, we can do the pre-documentation consultation, whatever that the need be, and then moving it into the storage into our warehouses and providing you with the in-country logistics, which could be in terms of people support on site, it could be transportation with our 1,500 strong fleet, compatible with what the guidelines say. In terms of material handling equipment, we have one of the largest equipments in stock in the country. In terms of infrastructure services, it could be mobilizing, demobilizing, boxing, deboxing, storage of flight crates, on-site support, anything in terms of procurement, venue services, all of this, we have a project team which is ready and geared up to provide you all the required support. And last but not the least, the reverse logistics. So as I mentioned earlier, not everything that comes in the state of Qatar for the World Cup will remain here. Because I've been working with a couple of sponsors and commercial affiliates. For example, somebody is going to bring in 4,000 refrigerators. So that's not going to get consumed here. So all that comes in, a whole part of it has to go back somewhere. So the reverse logistics also is a critical part because a whole lot of these products will go back. So our teams understand the requirements, so we are all geared up to provide you an end-to-end, door-to-door solution, bringing it in and all the way out as well. So for over 15 years, GWC has the privilege, and I would take pride in saying that we've been associated with all the mega events that have taken place in the country. Right from going back to 2006, the first biggest worldwide event, international event that was hosted by Qatar, which was the Asian Games way back in 2006. and thereon. We've been continuously engaged with all the sporting events that have taken place in the country, be it the swimming championship, the cycling, the equestrian events, the Club World Cups, the Amir Cup. So we've had a legacy. So we've kind of geared ourselves up to be the official logistics provider and to ensure this mandate is delivered smoothly and effortlessly. So as we speak, we are preparing for the Arab Cup, which is like 2 weeks away. After the successful hosting of this event, we move into the big event a year later, which is the World Cup, the world's largest sporting event. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Emily, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you everyone. That was Syed Mars, the Chief Business Development Officer at GWC. We have time for one more workshop now, and it is titled FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 Legacy. Our speaker is Mashal Al-Shamari. He's the Director at Qatar Green Building Council. And we have mentioned in a couple of our panels a little bit about the sustainability elements when it comes to logistics. And so Mashal will share his insights into the country's extensive planning to make sure that the 2022 World Cup is carbon neutral and how Qatar will further promote sustainable practices afterwards. So please give him a round of applause, everyone.
Good afternoon to you. I will take you a little bit away from logistics and the great work that GWC is doing. So we'll talk about FIFA World Cup 2022 and what we have provided as a kind of legacy as participation and contribution from Qatar Green Building Council toward that mega event. As you see from the title of Qatar Green Building Council, we focus on buildings in specific, but we work in sustainability in general. So we'll just introduce what we did in regard to hospitality, how we try to convert that sector to be sustainable, and related activities like the events. Next, please. So the vision of this exercise is to provide awareness about the hospitality sector and converting it to be a sustainable, and that can be through raising awareness within the community and also developing best practices, educating or building capacity, developing policies. So we did different our portfolio of efforts to achieve that goal. Next, please. So what we do by what we do actually in tourism sector, it's one of the biggest sectors that have a direct impact on the environment. So annually we have more than 1.5 billion tourists around the world. That includes different kind of tourists, like normal tourism or conferences, site camps, campaigns or tournaments like the World Cup. So it's portfolio of different kind of attractions that attracts the tourists to travel around the world. Next, please. Next, please. Also. So what we try to do in that sector when we talk about the hospitality, which targets mainly as a main client the hotels, or which contributes as work as the biggest contributor to hospitality sector. So it includes different kind of work. So if we talk about the procurement of those hotels, the materials or supplies that they have related to food and beverage procurement and different fields of procurement. Marketing, how does that program contribute to market those hotels and present them as responsible venues or hotels or facilities toward the environment. Education, so it's very important also that we use those hotels or hospitality facilities as a hub to educate and raise awareness within the visitors. So anybody visits the hotel should leave out with the change in his practices or something that like he has learned from being in that hotel. Operations, how does the operations of the hotel or the facility, for example, if it's an exhibition center, how does it operate in a sustainable way, so it will have a direct impact on the operations, waste management, water and energy consumptions. Awareness within even the employees, so it doesn't target the visitors or raising public awareness, it's also target targets the people who work in that facility. So starting from the management, the workers, and all the staff, how we make them engaged in that process so they become part of it, not something that we apply as a management or green key or whatever certification tool to the facility. It's a work that started and initiated from the staff themselves. Next, please. Next slide. So next, please. Next one. So what we did actually as initiative from our side, we worked closely with the Supreme Committee, being the management team of the biggest event that Qatar and the world will have in less than a year. So we developed the rating tools. So to certify a facility, you need a proper rating tool. Publications, we need to spread that kind of awareness to and experience, not only for Qatar, but for other countries, not only for the World Cup 2022, even for the next World Cups in future. Media and documentation, it's very important to document such things and experiences, because we have kind of lack of gap analysis or case studies or anything related here in the country. So we try to build that kind of capacity, and partnerships, very important too. We don't work alone, even Supreme Court don't work alone. So it's partnership with all stakeholders. Next, please. So what we did actually, we have two major contribution activities in the hospitality sector. So the venues themselves, like the buildings, either exhibition centers or hotels. So we became the national operator of a program called the Green Key, which is an international recognized program, works in many countries around the world, and we brought that program and tailored it to Qatar, and we started certifying the hotels. We certified 13 hotels now and 20 in the pipeline. And we don't work only in the facility itself. It is also very important that the event get operated and managed in a proper and eco-friendly way. So you can have very good, for example, stadiums for the World Cup, which are GSAS certified, which is a good rating system for buildings. But if the practices and operation of the facilities during the World Cup with more than 1.2 million visitors goes in the bad way, so they will have a severe impact on the environment. It's good to have good buildings, but also the practices and behaviors of the users of those buildings should be and eco-friendly. So we developed a program called Eco Event, which is a certification tool, very basic, starts from 1 star to 3 stars, depends on the event itself, and we assure that the event is certified from different perspectives that we'll go through. Next slide, please. So for example, like the Green Key, it's operating in more than 65 countries, more than 3,200 facilities certified. It can cover either exhibition centers, hotels, site camps, attraction places, and it looks to the hotel from different perspectives. So we are talking about not only water and energy consumption, but also from the waste management, from indoor air quality, indoor quality of the rooms, acoustics, lighting, the good practices, green areas, staff engagement. So it tackled that certification from different perspectives. So what we target at the end is the healthy lifestyle of human being, which is a combination of all sustainability aspects plus behaviors that have a direct impact on the health. So it also goes to the level of the detergents or cleaning agent, detergents that used within the hotel, the kind of food that provide within the hotel itself. So they should have like good variety of or options of organic or healthy food healthy practices within the hotel. So it is targeting the hotel itself as a facility, the staff and or operators of the hotel itself, and also the visitors who visit that facility. Next, please. So we are talking about different combining two different works, which is management, environmental management, and also education. So the facility will not be only managed in a sustainable way, but also it can be a hub for educating the visitors and the staff of the facility in that field. Next, please. So we worked with the FIFA World Cup Supreme Committee, Tarshid from Kahrama, and also Qatar Tourism Council to certify different hotels in Qatar. Next slide. Next, please. So those just kind of details. So, and we published case studies. We did a publication on our website in Green Key and presented different experiences. So, as we said, it's also very important to disseminate that experience and share it with everybody here in Qatar to let them know what we did and how they can achieve that. So, we are just telling stories from different hotels, from W Hotel being the first certified Green Key hotel in Qatar. Next, please. Marriott Marquis also, next one. Next, please, sorry. Yeah, Radisson Blu. And so you'll find in the case study or in the publication on our website different experiences from different hotels. Next, please, next slide. Next one. Next, please. So this sustainable hospitality as a case study from Qatar. As we said, we try to build that knowledge and data in Qatar, so it becomes very beneficial to everybody. Next slide. So that's we have publication with BBC also, which is very important to also spread that awareness within the whole world and present our experience in Qatar, and that can become as a legacy of our work, and not only from sports activities for the World Cup, but also sustainability for future. So what we did with the Supreme Committee, we did the workshops. Next, please. So we did set workshops where we, next slide. So where we did 3 days workshop, invited the hotels to attend workshops and that discuss different topics and different fields that they have to know about being sustainable hotels. So either from waste management, water and energy consumption, best practices, healthy buildings, to guide them to certify their facilities. Next, please. If you'd like to have go through those publications, those are the links for the videos and the publications. Next slide. So when we talk about the events actually one of the important fields that we have to focus on. As we said, we'll have more than 1.2 million visitors, where in a normal event, every attendee to the event will consume about 2 kilograms will produce 2 kilograms of waste, and about 1.2 kilograms of that waste will go to landfill, and that generates more than 176 kilograms of CO2 emissions. That's for only one attendees. Next slide. So we did a study of one of the biggest events that we have in Qatar, which is Qatar International Food Festival in 2019, where it was visited by more than 400,000 visitors in 10 days. So actually the generated CO2 emissions were about 150,000 tons of CO2 emissions, which is very high. I mean, if you compare it to energy consumption by a house or car fleet, so it's equivalent to more than 30,000 car trips in Qatar. Next, please. So we found it very important to focus on that event and raise the awareness and create the tools that can help people to do their events in a more sustainable way. Next. Next, please. So the eco-event system, it's very straightforward also system that focus on the procurement. So when you design an event, you have to think about the procurement, sustainable procurement, and which materials that you do procure, maybe recycled products or reusable products that the visitors or the attendees of that event can use. Limit your waste in that event. That's a kind of marketing team also for the event. Staging, you don't need to start with the highest level, so you can start from the level 3 until you reach to level 1. Operation of the event itself, when we talk about the waste management within the event also. So, and the main aim also is to educate. So any visitor to that event, when they know that is an eco-event certified event, so it's kind of awareness to them to know what has been done behind that to be able to achieve that certificate. Next. So we have different rating systems. When we talk about buildings, we have LEED, Green Key, or GSAS, or WELL, ISO certification for management, management-focused certification tool. Event is one of its kind tool that targets the events themselves. Next, please. Next slide. So as we said, it tackled different aspects, different criteria of the event. Next, please. So as we start from level 1 award. Even this gathering can be certified, a meeting can be certified until a wedding party, conference, tournament like the World Cup, any event can be certified following very straightforward processes. So eco level 1, you just do it online and submit. You don't need an audit. Level 2 we can do a random audit. Level 3 is a full audited event. Next. So those programs actually, this program is one of Qatar Game Building Council programs where we do to support the industry from sustainability perspective. We have different programs related to education like the Eco Schools, Eco Campus, for the well-being, our Qatar Sustainability Awards, Al Tadwir program for the recycling industry, and different programs. Next, please. So the main aim, next slide. The main aim is about well-being. Next, please. So the focus of all those programs, they work to support the sustainability, but also our human well-being is our main target. Next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mashal Al-Shamari. Okay, that concludes our event for today. As we've heard, efficient planning, effective communication, and flawless coordination are needed to deliver mega events. And in much the same way, it's those skills which were needed to put on today's forum. So I'd like to thank our speakers for sharing their remarkable insights with us today, the GWC leadership team, a particular thank you to FIFA and the head of events logistics, Jose Duma, and a special thanks to everyone here and at home who have been watching. I think that deserves a round of applause, don't you? Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the day. Thank you for your participation, and we hope to see you at next year's forum. Please stick around for some lunch if you're here. Thank you.